So I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Erin, and I'm going to be moderating today. I've been with Emsi for almost 6 years, and Alys will be actually doing the training today. This is going to be focusing on new using of the software. She'll be explaining data, how to navigate efficiently. We have a monthly training like this every single month. They vary from advanced topics to beginner topics. And we actually record those, and they are placed in the knowledge base within the software. So Alys has been working also with Emsi. Actually, it's like 3 weeks longer than myself, so she is really right at 6 years. And she has been an expert with data. She works with hundreds of colleges and does a fabulous job explaining data.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining today. Let me share my screen here. Make sure I can do this. It always gets confusing, but can you see it, Erin?
Yes, I can. Alys, one more thing I wanted to say. Everyone will be on silence mode. I forgot to say that. And please put any questions in the chat box. We won't interrupt Alys while she's doing the presentation, but at the end, she's going to allow a ton of time for questions and for follow-up. And so go ahead and throw those questions in. We'd love to see them, and we'd love to see what your thoughts are.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to y'all. One of the great things about working in Analyst is no matter how many times you've seen it, there's always something new to see. There's so much data, there's so much information, and our engineering team is really innovative and always adding extra pieces in, so that's really helpful. Erin, before I go forward, you can see my screen?
I can.
Perfect. I just changed it so it'd just be the browser. So I'm really excited. Like Erin said, we'll be recording this. So if you have any colleagues you want to share it with, or you can't stay the whole time, you'll be able to check it out later. I did put the link into the chat feature where you can go find those recordings, and we will be sending that out via email after this if you did register. So don't worry about that as well. So first things to get started, this is the home page of Analyst. Once you log in, these are the pieces that you'll see. And a couple of things to highlight before we move forward is Emsi is really about support here. So as you're working through Analyst, feel free to reach out to your account manager under the support tab up here. It'll have their contact information, as well as going to the knowledge base to see any self-searching you want to do. So if you're in the tool doing any research and you want to just go explore on your own, you can do that as well. And then down here is our live chat feature. Myself, the rest of the customer service team, Erin, all of us help manage that. We don't outsource that, so it's something that you're going to be able to go and talk directly to the account managers here at Emsi Burning Glass. And so we really want to make sure that you get all the help you need as you're exploring it. So a couple of features on this front page. This area here is your saved reports. All of you are doing those projects that require you to go in and filter or add in certain pieces. This is where you can save those and rerun those with each new data set. We want to make sure that you're equipped to be able to rerun, to save any of that information, so you don't have to do that over and over and over again. Speaking of data sets, when we update our data, everything goes into this drop-down menu up here in the right-hand corner. We update every quarter so that you can have the latest and best information. And you can go and toggle here between the third quarter and the second quarter. We do go back 1 quarter so that if you are doing a long-term project, you have 6 months to work on that. If you're ever curious about what we've changed, you can always view these release notes. Emsi is very transparent about the information that we want to show you. So in the release notes, we'll give you an overview of what's happening, any current notes you need to know about, but the most important part, in my opinion, is down here at the bottom, and that's what data set we're currently in. We work with over 70 different government sources, so knowing what data set, what time frame we're in for these different sources is really helpful, and being able to see how up to date they are. All right, so that leads us into actually talking about what can you use in Analyst, and how do these reports work, and where can you find information. So when I go in to use Analyst, the first question I ask is, well, what kind of data am I going to be using? Am I looking at occupations? Am I starting with programs? Am I looking at job postings? I want to make sure that I'm starting in the right space. So over here on the left-hand side is our data menu. And I'll go through each of these here in just a minute, but going back really quickly, I always like to start with that question, and that helps guide me where I'm going to go in Analyst. With so many different pieces, it's helpful to have a pinpointed direction of where you can take your research. So The left-hand side here, we have our occupation data set that runs off of standard occupation codes, or SOC codes. You'll hear me refer to SOC, SIP, NAICS codes, ONET throughout this entire training, and those are just different data sets that we help standardize our data with, those different codes to help them talk back and forth. So SOC codes work with occupations, and for each of our data sets, we have these 3 main reports. We're going to be going over 2 of them, so the overview and the table, and that will help us answer a question that I'll pose here in just a minute. But think of these as your main reports. These are the most commonly used reports. The overview is a great visual to start out with and to help you get an idea of how to share this information with folks through graphs, visuals, narratives, and giving you all that information to share forward. The table is a way to start out at a really general level, an umbrella level of data, and then be able to filter down to get the specifics that you need. Think of it like a fancy Excel file. The occupation by location is a mixture of both of those. You get a heat map with a table to help you visualize what's going on in your region, and those data points kind of update the heat map as you change them. And then for each section, we have this all other reports section. This is a great place to go and find those specific processes that you're doing. So if you're trying to find highest ranked occupations, or maybe you're trying to compare an occupation across multiple regions, this is a great place to do that. These were created based off of feedback from clients, so that if people had these projects they were trying to do and didn't want to have to go in and filter a table each time, or have to go in and find more information and do a lot of work each time in these reports, these were created by our engineers for those specific things. So you'll see a section like that in each one of our data sets. So that's occupations. Programs run off of SIP codes, Certified Instructional Program codes. So think of those as these are what you report to iPads, and how you're organizing your programs as well. So same thing here, overview, table by location, but we also have a look at our program development and review, which we do have a training on, so you go check that out in those videos that I sent the link over to, but really just helping you analyze from a program perspective. So if you were to do program review, I would start with the program overview. You can input a SIP code that connects over to SOC codes, connects over to job postings to give you a good idea. So I'm going to skip past the job posting section here and I'll come back to that. But the next one is industries. Right now we're looking at those traditional government data sets that have been reported to the government, are working under those standardized coding systems so that we can talk back and forth. So industries are under NAICS codes, the North American Industrial Classification System. It did take me a long time to memorize that and actually say it well in a training. So I always feel a little proud of myself when I can do that. But those NAICS codes are once again helping us align with occupations and programs. Think of it as being industries are a more umbrella level that we then connect over to the occupations within those industries through SOC codes, and then we connect over to program codes to help us know how the education should go out for occupations. Once again, those same reports are in here. We wanted to have some consistency, so as you're using these reports, you can understand what you get for each of these data sets, and then those all other sections as well. Finally, we have our regions, which this is just your regional information, demographic information that you put in a region and you get all the information about that. We'll actually be taking a look at the economy overview today just to give you an idea of what that looks like and see what kind of information that will give you. We won't spend a lot of time in that because it is going to be a pretty basic overview report, but it's something helpful to understand how that works. The final piece in our traditional information is input-output. This is just a scenario that you can run to help you see if, say, you have a business of 500 people coming into the region, how is that going to affect your region? What are the direct and indirect changes? What does your supply chain look like? Those types of things that can be helpful when you're assessing your area. This goes for jobs that might be leaving as well. If you have a big company that's closing down or changing areas, that's a helpful way to see that. So then that takes us to our job posting and profile analytics. These are 2 extra data sets that we have, and these are self-reported by different folks out in our communities. So job postings are coming from exactly that, job postings that employers put online, and we can go in and analyze that to show you what types of skills employers are looking for, where they're trying to hire at, what companies are trying to hire, how frequently they're posting, what is the duration of their postings, and really being able to drill down and help you understand what employers in your area need. So that's the demand side. On the supply side, we look at profile analytics. Now for you Canada folks out there, we don't have this for you right now, so I like to include that, but everything else in this training will be here. The only reason why I want to talk about profile analytics for a second is because as we look at a couple of reports, it will show this next to job postings. so that we can show you what that supply looks like. This is coming from online professional sites, think resumes, online professional portfolios, those types of things that people are putting out to help get their resume out online. Any public source will pull this from, so this is once again a self-reported piece, but this helps show skills that people are supplying and is helpful in a lot of different ways for people in higher ed. All right, so I'm gonna go back up to occupations here. I just had the GoToWebinar notify me of something, but I'm not seeing what it needed, so I'm gonna go back down here. All right, so when it comes to occupation reports, we can start out with the table or the overview and be able to answer a couple of questions. Now, I told you we were gonna look at that economy overview, so we're gonna start there just to give you an idea of what this report looks like and talk through that a little bit. And then we're gonna actually go and find the top growing occupations in your region that require a college degree and look at that information there, find the top one, and then connect that over to what are employer demand, what are they asking for, what types of skills, and what does that job look like in your region right now. So we're gonna kind of go through a couple of reports just to give you an idea of what they look like and how you can use them. Remember, if you do have questions, please throw them into the chat feature. We wanna make sure we answer those for you. But also, we will be recording this so you can share it with folks. So I'm gonna start with this economy overview. Since we're in Idaho, that's where I'm gonna search. I'm just gonna do the state of Idaho. When you go into search for a region, you can just put in a keyword search. So at this point, I put in Idaho, it pulls up the state, any of the metropolitan statistical areas that might go along with that keyword search, any counties that we might have that have Idaho in them. So I can just click state, that's where I wanna go. But maybe you don't know what your region is. Maybe it's not as clear, you're not just putting in a state, maybe you wanna put in the counties around where you're at. So we have a couple of other options over here that you can do for your regions. The first and most common one is this radius from address. You can go in and select an address. So once it loads here, I can go in and say, I want to do 60 miles from Moscow, Idaho. And can make sure this is the right county, click into it and be able to go in and see those different regions. So right now I have it as counties, to have it 60 miles out. It should populate here in just a minute, but you can choose whether you want to do the region centroid, if you want to do the entire region or part of it. And once this populates, the reason why that's important is because sometimes you're only grabbing an edge of a county and we want to make sure we're getting what we need. For some reason, it's not showing up. And of course, during training, that's when that would happen, right? But you can also go down to zip level if you need to, and in some parts of the tool, you can go down to Census Track. So depending on what part of the nation you're in, it's really important to have that Census Track to get a little bit closer. So from here, you can go in and just select those counties. That will pull those into your region, and we can just go search if we want to, or we can also save these groups right here, so you can access this in groups later. It will go across state lines, so if you have that data, we are right on the Washington state line, so this is going to grab all that information on that side as well. So I'm just going to click run from here. If you need to, you can go back to setup. In 90% of our reports, we have the setup here on the left-hand side, which you'll see in some later reports that we look at. From here, you can save this report, so if you want to look at it on the homepage again, you can, or if you want to share it with a colleague. You can also export this into Excel, PDF. Since we have multiple regions, we can export this into individual regions. So if you wanted to take each of those 8 counties by themselves, you can export this and it will export 9 total regions. So your whole region with those 8 counties and then each individual county on its own. Really just giving you the option to do that comparison if you want to across the board. So the first thing this will show is just what are your overall takeaways for the region. This is looking at the whole economy based off of region. We don't include just a single occupation or industry here. We'll look at what those top ones are further down, but giving us the ability to see what the population is, what the total regional employment is, how much people are making. It will include a brief narrative below so you can get some insight into what the numbers mean, as well as breaking down our labor force. So not only, this is not just the population at this point now, we're seeing our labor force, so who's not working, who's employed and unemployed, what does that military and institutionalized population look like? What is our education attainment? So how many people have that college level degree? How many people have a bachelor's degree within your population? Take a look at unemployment. This last year and a half, I know a lot of people are always looking at unemployment, but this last year and a half, we got to see quite the range of differing numbers there. And so it's helpful to break that down by these different options. Anywhere in the tool that you see these little buttons, you can toggle between these different sets of data to get a different perspective. Typically with our graphs like this, below you'll see a chart that will give you those actual numbers to be able to see what that looks like. I like to joke around here at Emsi that we're trend followers. I always do the hashtag trend followers. I think I'm super cool with the young kids, but really it's just kind of lame. But I make myself giggle, so it's fun. But really we are, and so are you guys. We're always looking at trends to see what's happened in the past. What are we gonna see going into the future? Those projections that can help us really see what decisions you should make about programs, what decisions students should make where they're gonna go with their careers. And so right now we're looking at those population trends. So are we seeing growth in our population? Are jobs growing as well or going down? It's always interesting to look at the last 2 years to see this decline and then start to see it going again. What does our labor force look like now? And then how is unemployment changing in comparison to that as well? If you ever see charts like this and you're like, okay, I really want to just pull this chart out of this report, these little 3 dots here give you the ability to download an image by itself or export or remove it from the export. So if there are pieces that you just want by themselves, you're going to use in a report, you can just export one image at a time. Show you those population characteristics. So what does your main workforce look like? Who's retiring? Are there enough to refill that? Racial diversity. And then a couple of stats down here to show what your veteran numbers look like, violent crime, property crime look like in comparison to places the same size in the US. So giving you that context of how does this compare to other spaces the same size that you are. Where are people working? It's no surprise for most people when they look at their region to say, oh, okay, some people are working, moving to this place to work. Right here where this is at is a larger city. So it's no surprise that people would be going there to work and being able to see where people are leaving to go work in other counties and being able to see how that commuter pattern works. Once again, we'll break that down here so you can see a little bit of numbers on that front. A nice chart to show you where people are going from and where they're going to. So where were they before in one space and where have they moved to? And then we'll start breaking down what are the different industries that are available in the region. So we can go in and take a look at, and it looks like our industries information for some of these aren't here. But these, once again, you can toggle back and forth. So if we want to see what are your top growth in industries right now for the region. What are the top specialized occupation industries, top GRP, and then your top earnings. So each of these will go back and forth. If maybe you wanted to get a little bit more information here, anywhere you see this blue language, you can hover over it. It's a hyperlink to jump over to a more detailed table or show more information. We'll do the same thing with businesses in the area. So what are the top companies in the region that people are working at? No surprise that it's the 2 universities here. And then what are the top companies that are posting right now? Which ones are needing more people? You can toggle between business size and get more detail if you need to. And then we work our way down to occupations as well. So we're starting at that high level of industries, working down to see what those occupations look like, being able to see what are your top jobs in the region, what occupations are growing. Now these are at a higher level detail, so we're not going to see those more specific jobs. For SOC codes, we work with different digits. So we go up to 5-digit SOC codes, and that becomes a really specific occupation. But these are at 2 digits. So right now we're seeing just those general categories of what these top occupations are. If you wanted to see more detail, you can jump over to a detailed table to check that out. Once again, what's more specialized in the region, what jobs are making the most money, what jobs have the most postings from employers, and then what does our education level look like? So in the region right now, we have a lot of jobs that are requiring that bachelor's degree, but the population level is below that. So same thing for others. We have a high population of associate's degrees, but not a lot of jobs that require that. So helpful to see kind of where that gap is in the region. And then finally showing that education pipeline to say, okay, these are the programs that are being completed in the area. This is the level that are being completed, and being able to see what that supply for talent is in the area. and then seeing the supply of skills. So this conversation right now is all about skills. So what types of skills are we looking at? Now these top 10 skills breach over all occupations right now. We're not just talking about one single occupation, and we'll be able to drill down to that here in just a minute. But this report is going to give you a nice overview of what's happening in your region. This is a great one to send out to folks to say, okay, these are the top occupations we should be looking at. This is the top industry that is having the most growth or the most activity right now. So just a great place to start. If you don't know where to start and you're trying to figure out information about your region, this is a really good report to do that with. Right, I'm gonna go back to the home page here. Just click on the Emsi logo, and it'll take you right back to your home page and to all of your data sets. So the next step that we're gonna do is I'm gonna walk you through a handful of other reports. But when you do go into Analyst, I said this earlier, have a question you're trying to answer, because there's so many things. You could go in here and just kind of play around with the data and look at things, but typically you're just going to be wandering through the data. Maybe you go down a weird rabbit hole or not really know a direction to go. So my go-to question, especially for these trainings that we're talking to people who may have never used the tool before, is to go and find the top growing occupations in the region I'm looking at and that require a college level degree and that have a decent paying salary. Which ones are growing the most? And so we'll go and take a look at that, but from there we're going to actually connect that over to say what skills are employers looking for and what employers are trying to hire. So we're going to take a look at 3 different reports and we'll walk through those together. So I'm going to start out occupations, and I'm going to go over to an occupation table. Like I said before, this is similar to an Excel table. So you're going to go in and have all those columns. You can sort and filter, and this makes it really easy to find a good starting point. So I'm going to keep all available occupations because we want to filter that down to specific occupations. I'm going to keep my region I had before too. So we're looking at the greater area around Latah County. So this includes some of Washington as well. So we're able to see a little bit more detail about Idaho. And then I want to go down and select some data. So we do have these default data selections you can do, so openings versus completions or earnings and adjusted earnings. But what I want to do is look at growing occupations that require a college level degree that have a decent salary. So I'm going to go in and do a custom data selection. Now I already have some of these selected, but I'm going to remove from my previous search so that I can go through and select all those with you. So what I want to do first is do a current year and the start year and the end year for my time frame. We aren't going to look at resident workers today, but you can look at hires as well, separations. We do want to look at change, so we're going to look at a job change count as well as the percentage. You can look at resident workers, location quotient, openings if you want to, whether you want to do average openings or if you want to do annual openings. We are going to look at median hourly earnings, so I'm going to put in that median hourly earning here. You can look at cost of living as well as percentile earnings if you want to. Annual earnings are in here as well, so it depends on what your search is. Some people want the annual earning as well as the hourly, but you can also look at historical earnings too. We don't project earnings, but if you do take a look at historical earnings, you can get an idea of that movement, so it's helpful to have that information in here as well. We have that both hourly and annually. Cost of living, automation index, that's a big one right now to see what types of occupations can potentially go into automation. Shift share, we want to look at education. So we want to look at that typical entry-level education for occupations. Is it college level? And then if we wanted to, we could add in some unemployment and demographic information here. Say we wanted to include how many people are going to be retiring in the next couple of years. We could add that in here as well to see that. But for now, I'm just going to keep it pretty basic and look at those couple of pieces that will help us look at top growing jobs that have a good median hourly earning and require a college level degree. So I'm going to click select here and then click run. Don't worry if you didn't get everything right the first time, that's okay. The amount of times I've had to go in and add or remove columns or change my time frame or change my counties is numerous. I can't even count how many times I've had to do it. So in this report, we do have all of our filters on the left-hand side here that you can go in and take a look at the time frame. So I have mine adjusted from 2021, and I'm going to look at it to 2026 for the next 5 years. All of my counties are still in here. And one thing to note is that some of these occupations you may want to adjust to be just employees versus self-employed. I was looking at an occupation in in Iowa that was for farmers and ranchers, and turns out when you keep self-employed in there, it gets pretty low numbers and isn't really reflected on what those actual salaries are. So it's helpful to make sure you're looking at the right class of worker here. For most searches, I would say employees and self-employed are the way you're going to want to keep them in there, but there are going to be some of those that toggling between those will be helpful. All right, so now that we're in here, we've got this sorted by our stock code here. We're at the 5-digit level, so we're getting as specific as we can. But we want to sort by percentage change. We want to see which jobs are growing the most and be able to see that in 2 ways. So I'm going to actually add in, I'm going to ink out these 2 change columns. And the reason I'm going to do that is as we take a look at these, it's helpful to see ones that are both percentage high as well as job count. Because we may see this one up here that has a 28% change and there's only 5 jobs, but down here there's one that's 22% change and there's 45 jobs. So we want to make sure we're looking at those that have a large growth. The other thing we're looking at here is we're seeing a doctoral degree, we're seeing no formal educational credential. Those weren't what we wanted to search for. We wanted to find ones that allowed for that college level education. So what I'm going to do is come up here and filter. I'm going to add in 2 filters. I'm going to do a typical entry level education that's greater than or equal to some college, no degree. And I'm going to do one more, and I'm going to cap that with typical entry level education that's less than or equal to an associate's degree. And then just click apply. Now as we resort this, we can now see those ones that require a degree. We also get to see that hourly earning. And most of these, I would say, aside from a couple of them, have pretty decent wages, especially for Idaho. And so our minimum wage is $7.25, I think, maybe $7.45. And so we are seeing pretty decent wages for this here. At this point, if you wanted to, we've done a little bit of filtering, we've done some sorting. This is a great report to rerun every quarter with our new data set to see which jobs may be emerging, which ones may be growing. So saving this report to the home page is really helpful. I'm going to do Idaho top occupations. And like I said, this will save it. You can share it with your team if you want to. You can set up an email to be able to send it. This is just a great way to be able to follow these trends if you want to. You can also export this and share it with folks. Since, like I said, we have multiple regions, you can export that into multiple regions as well. So from here, as we take a look at this, we can say, okay, well, which jobs are growing the most? Which one do we want to take a look at and explore a little bit further? So if I'm taking a look at this, I think I'm going to choose licensed practitioner and licensed vocational nurses. Has a pretty decent job count growth, it's a good salary. We can take a little bit further look. Now, when you tally mark this, what this does is opens up opportunities up here at the top for you to go and be able to look a little bit further. You can also narrow this down as well. So if you don't want to look at the whole list of occupations, you can actually just click up to however many you want and keep those or hide ones. So this makes it really easy to use this, and it's a really versatile report that's helpful to use on many different searches. So I chose this occupation here, and I'm going to actually jump over to an occupation overview. So at this point, we've done a really nice search of showing all of the occupations available in the region. How are they growing? What does their salary look like? The next goal is to be able to get more information. What exactly is this occupation? What do they do in this occupation? How does this tie over to employers? How does it tie over to programs? So we can go to this occupation overview and start doing that search. So once you jump over to this report, it will bring over all of your counties with you, all of the occupation code that you chose, if you chose multiple, to bring it over as well, to give you that option to see this very, very shareable report. And I like this one because it not only has visuals, but it also has narratives to help you add some context to what you're looking at, but it also is going to give you a little bit more detail. So anywhere you see this little plus button will pull out more information for you. In this case, telling you exactly what a licensed practical and licensed vocational nurse does. So you can see that, what job titles are connected to this from employer job postings. We know that employers are posting much more specific job titles, so you can start to get an idea of what exactly employers are looking for. Are they looking for a private duty nurse, a clinical nurse, an LPN, an LVN? So really, are they working in triage? Those types of things that can be helpful to understand some of those different skills you might need to align with this, as well as any ONET occupations this might align with as well. Your options up here are you can save this report as well or export it. That is an option for all of our reports to export and be able to share that externally if you want to with the rest of your colleagues at your institution. All right, similar to the overview we saw before for the economy overview, this will break down what we're seeing with this job in your region. So right now we see 211 jobs. For the size of region that we're in, we're below our average here. So typically we see around 340 of these occupations. Our compensation is above the average, which is nice to see, and see that that compensation is growing, as well as what our job posting demand. Right now, healthcare is going through the roof, and we're seeing a lot of job posting demand for this, and even our region is higher than other areas that are the same size. If you want to, you can jump back over to the occupation table if you started at the overview, but our goal is to make it seamless for you to jump back and forth, be able to see all the data that you need. So you'll see this often, this jump to feature throughout the software. The next piece is being able to see what does that trend look like going forward. I love this graph because this is one of the few places in the tool you can compare different size regions. So at this point, we're looking at those 8 counties in Idaho and Washington. And we have our national average as well. But let's see how these 8 counties compare to the state of Idaho, as well as how they compare to the state of Washington. And being able to compare those together and say, okay, are they growing? Are they decreasing? We not only have those trend lines, but we also give you the information below here to show you what that looks like in each area that we're viewing. You can export this if you want to, so you can download this image and be able to share that. For those of you that are visual like I am, I love these graphs, being able to see what the concentration of jobs are in the region and being able to see how that lays out. Being familiar with the region, I'm not surprised by these numbers, but it is helpful to see how that lays out, and sometimes you'll be surprised and see those different spaces you didn't expect. What are the industries folks are working in? A lot of times we can make guesses on what this will be. You know, they'll work in hospitals or care facilities. I'm seeing a lot more with nurses, traveling nurses, and that's helpful to see. Sometimes you'll see manufacturing because those facilities need a nurse in them. So it's helpful to see what those industries are that you should be specializing in. What's the compensation? So we not only compare our region to the nation, but we also do cost of living adjusted for our region. Up here, you can toggle between the annual and hourly, and both of those will show those different percentiles as you're looking across that board. Next, we want to talk about what employers need. So employers are giving us that up-to-date information, that real-time data that we can use to help us understand what's happening in occupations more and more. So right now we can see that 328 unique jobs have been posted. We do deduplicate those so you can see just what that looks like, with 107 employers competing. So most of these employers are posting multiple times. And so we're seeing that through these different postings here, as well as holding them up for about 30-day median duration. That's pretty average. And so right now that's 2 days longer than typical average in the region. And I would say knowing that, we're seeing employers posting for multiple positions that they're probably keeping them up because they're trying to hire for multiple different positions in the region. So it's helpful to see these 3 data points together. In addition, we'll show you how many postings we're seeing versus how many hires per month. This chart is really helpful in assessing where are people actually posting for positions. Sometimes we'll see a position for maybe a more trade or technical job, and we'll see these numbers inversed. And what that can tell us is people aren't posting online for positions, but there's still activity of them hiring for these different positions. So it's helpful to see what this looks like, as well as to see how their activity for posting and hiring has occurred. It is not too uncommon to see the hires be pretty flatlined with consistent hiring, but what we do see change is their posting trends and how frequently are they adding more postings online to try and get more talent. What are the top companies competing? So we get to see these top companies in the region competing. If you're ever looking at this and you're like, oh, well, these companies aren't in my area, that's okay, because these are the companies that are posting in your area with the need for traveling nurses or just for nurses in general. Any occupation you may be looking at could be remote. So employers are posting where they see talent. And with 2 universities here, it's not too unheard of to see people posting outside of the region. So don't be worried about that if you see that. Or talk to your account manager. We can always help explain why you might be seeing some of those data points. And in addition, we showed top job titles. So I pointed this out earlier, but it's helpful to use those job titles from employers. The reason being is if we take SOC codes, which we're looking at over here on the left-hand side, there's about 900 of them. It's a lot of SOC codes. But when we think about in comparison to job titles, we are looking at thousands of job titles. So what this does for the data is helps us see what exactly our employer is looking for and how specific are they getting. So in this case, I've talked about traveling nurses. We have nurse staff, registered nurses, long-term care, clinical nurses. So this helps give an idea of what more specialization students might need to go into. Then we start to pull in skills. Skills is my favorite conversation right now. I know a lot of the account managers enjoy talking about it too, but it's because it's so common. Higher ed needs them right now. Employers, that's how they're telling higher ed what they need. And so pulling in skills is really important and really relevant for not only program planning, but talking to employers, trying to build out those advisory boards and showing what you can do with the skills being taught in your curriculum. So we break it into two different sections for you. Hard skills, think of those as the more specific skills people will need for the occupation you're looking at. The dark blue line is what we're seeing in job postings, and the light blue is what we're seeing in profiles that we're finding online, those professional online profiles that students or community members are filling out. So at this point, we can see what are people putting on their profiles and how are employers needing that. Most of the time, we see that the difference between them is that people aren't putting information on their profiles that employers need. So this is helpful to not only know, maybe telling your students in your programs that, yeah, you need to put basic life support and nursing, and you need to put CPR on these things. Or students that you're helping out in the Career Center, these are pieces that people aren't putting on their professional sites or their resumes that employers need to see. Same thing with common skills or marketable skills or soft skills or human skills, transferable skills. All of these different words are being used to talk about those skills that people gain across all different occupations. And typically, if you look at this, I can take a look at this, and I'm not a licensed practical nurse, but I have most of these skills. And so taking a look at this, it's helpful to see, how can I turn these soft skills into an occupation by adding some of those hard skills or more specific skills to get to that next level. Once again, we'll break it down below, down here for you so you can see more information. In addition, we'll start adding in demographics. So who's retiring soon? What is that racial and gender diversity within these occupations? Don't worry if you're not getting the numbers up here you want to see, or you want to see more information and see, who might be replacing those people that are retiring soon. What is the gender breakdown, and what is that racial diversity looking like? How is that broken down? Down below, we have all that information for you. So if you want to take a look at that age and see these are the retiring folks, we have plenty of workforce coming in after that to help fill that. Your race and ethnicity breakdown, as well as gender breakdown, and then your educational attainment. So this is just helping us see what type of education do people typically have in this position, what do your students need? And then finally, what are your top occupational programs? So these are tied to the colleges in the area that are actually training for this. So right now we're seeing 2 completions reported under the zip code 51.3901, and it's from Lewis and Clark State College down in Lewiston. So we can see those completions. You can always click on this blue title here to go over to a different report to see what exactly those completions look like, be able to break that down if they're online or offline, and then a little bit further down, what are those similar programs that might be doing that training as well, to help get a full idea of what that competitive landscape looks like. One of the reasons I did this is one of my favorite features in Analyst is you can use the back button. It seems so simple, but how many times does that kick you out of a tool and you're like, why is this happening? So you can always go back to that report you were at first and be able to go do a little bit more exploration there. So one of the things I wanted to do is go over to our job postings report. And the reason for that is we show a lot of information in here about job postings. But one of the important pieces we don't show in here is our credential levels that we can show that employers need. So if you want to do a little bit more exploration, or maybe you want to focus on one company, you can jump over to job posting analytics and be able to see a little bit more information about what's happening in the workforce in your region right now. So once you get into job posting analytics, We only have a couple more minutes here, so I'm going to quickly go through a lot of this, and we talked a little bit about some of these details. But on the left-hand side, there's over 12 different filters you can use. The reason this is really valuable is because since this is being self-reported by different employers, there's a lot of information you can grab from this. You can find remote or non-remote working, any of those staffing or non-staffing companies. You can also do a keyword search. So if you're looking for a specific keyword in there, or if you're looking for a specific skill that you want to see what employers in your area need trained on that skill, you can always use this area to be able to go and find those job postings that have it. So really quickly to go over some of these numbers that we saw before, but I didn't go into too much detail. We do show our total postings for the region for this occupation. Right now, we are searching by that same SOC code we've been using. So you can search by SOC code, job title, you can search by company. But since we just jumped over, it kept all of our same search parameters as before. So we can use this to say, okay, there's a little over 1,200 total job postings, but reality is some of those are going to be duplicates. So we deduplicated that down to 381. And what this is saying is that for every one job posting, it's posted 3 times. This can help us out by saying, okay, how often are people posting for this? Is there a high intensity? If this was 7 to 1, I would say employers are posting quite a bit to try and get this, especially in comparison to the region. And like I pointed out before, there's 30 days duration here. So I'm making the assumption based off of these that people are trying to hire for multiple positions. They're not staying up for long, but there are multiple job postings. So we can kind of make a couple assumptions based off of what these numbers are saying. Another feature we've added in is being able to look at the advertised salary. Sometimes this doesn't match up with what we're seeing people are reporting in their government reporting that people are making, because employers are offering more now or they're offering less, just dependent on what the need is for the market. So we'll show you what that advertised salary is, as well as how does that compare to the government recorded salary. So right now, employers are advertising $15,000 more. And you can see how that breaks down, as well as being able to see how that's changed over time. So right now we can say that there hasn't been much of a change since September, since we're looking at right now, our time frame is looking over the time back to October 2020. So how has that changed in that time frame? So really being able to see what that trend for wages looks like based on what employers are posting. This whole report is talking about employer information and what we're seeing on that front. Once again, what does that regional breakdown look like, and where are people doing the most posting? If you want to be able to search each individual job posting, you can. We'll give you those sample postings so you can see where it's being posted at. You can go to that site. You can see that exact job description here and what employers are posting. What are the trends look like over the last 5 years, 12 months, and the last 30 days? We do update this every night, this little chart here, so you can see what's been happening over the last couple of days, over the last 30 days, so you can see how that trend looks in comparison to last year. Any education that employers are listing, we'll put here as well. Don't worry if these percentages add up to more than 100. Sometimes employers say they're looking for an associate's or a bachelor's degree. So we'll list that out for you. Once again, those hires versus postings. Who's hiring? If maybe you want to come in and look at just prestige care, you can tally mark that and be able to search just for that. Maybe you're going to talk to prestige care. This gives you a good option to show you what types of things they're posting for, how frequently they're posting for it, and what skills. Top cities employers are posting in. The top occupations, since we're searching by this occupation, that's what will show up. But if you did search by job title or you search by industry, it will tie it over to those occupations for you. This is highlighted blue, so you can click on this and it'll take you over to the occupation overview we were just in, as well as those top job titles we're looking at. So once again, being able to get a good idea and insight into what employers are looking at on a more specific level. What industries we're seeing employers posting in. Those top skills, so once again, hard and common skills. But then we added in below this, what are your top qualifications? So think of this as your credentialing or different qualifications you need to take a class for. You typically get a piece of paper to say that you've taken this and you've gotten that extra information. And typically this is a great way to show what you can be training in your courses, or if you're already training them in these different pieces. If a certified nursing assistant is something you're already training, you can click on that and see what other jobs you might be able to offer that for. And then what are your top posting sources? I said this before, but we are very transparent with our data, and we want to make sure that we're giving you all the information that you need. We want you to trust the data more than anything, and that's part of our goal of giving you that data release note set, as well as our top posting sources. All right, so I know I just showed you guys a lot of information here and a lot of pieces, and that's just the beginning. But I know Erin said that we were going to save plenty of time for questions, so I'm going to open that up and see. Erin, were there any questions that people asked?
Yeah, that was fantastic, Alys, and as usual, I learned something. Every time someone presents on Analyst, there's like a multi-layered onion, and I learned something more, and I hopefully other people did as well. A couple of really good questions. So if you could actually show the different ways that you can get to an occupation overview, either from the occupation table, or within just going to the occupation overview, or even from programs. If you could show how that is actually achieved. What's really great about Analyst is that even though you start in any report, most of the time you can navigate into other reports. So if you could show a couple different ways, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, totally. So the first and easiest way is just to go over to occupations, get to an occupation overview. But even from the home page, there's other ways you can get there. So you can go up to reports up here and access each of our different data sets through this report section. If you click on occupations, it'll take you here. But you can also start with your search feature, and we could put in, we can just go up here and put in nursing assistant, and this will pull up all of your options to search for those. And it should populate it here. It's taking forever to source this, but usually this will do a drop down and you can jump into the occupation overview. Since it's not loading, I'm going to jump to the next way you can get there. So, oh, there we go. So this will pull up all the different pieces. On the left-hand side here, it will show you what you're looking for. If you wanted to go into an occupation overview, you could do it right here. So just giving you a couple ways from the home page. The next way is maybe you do start at the program side and you're looking into your program overview and you put in a zip code. So we can just do, since we've done nursing, I'll stick with that. You can go into, like, say, nursing assistant and click run, and this is starting from the program side. So as you're taking a look at this, this will give you an outline of all of your program completions by institution. Turns out I looked at the wrong one because there aren't a lot of regional completions here. But we'll also show you any programs that are similar to that. And then down below, we'll give you your target occupations. So our SIP to SOC map here. I'm saying these are the occupations people typically go into from nursing assistant. This will give you all of the higher level details, but if you want to, you can use that jump to feature here to jump over to that occupation overview. Now, one of the things I love about Analyst is you can go down a rabbit hole, you can search and find all this information, but we also want you to get back to where you were originally. So if you're not sure how to get to something with all that jumping to and from, you can just go up here and we'll actually give you breadcrumbs. So what this is saying is if you want to get back to the occupation overview is go to the home page, click on that occupation data set, and then go to the occupation overview. Did that answer that, Erin?
Really well. If you could just really quickly bring up a table and show them the go-to function in the table, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so really quickly, I'm going to redo that again because that was really fast. Occupations, go to your occupation table here. All of our searches that we did earlier in the training are all still here. So we've kept the regions, the data selection, you just click run. And then from here, as you're looking in here, it won't automatically highlight. So your jump to feature here is grayed out. But as soon as you tally mark any of these occupations, that will immediately give you the option to jump to. You click that and then you can jump over to an overview, occupational programs, or even over to job posting analytics. But this is another way you can get to that occupation overview.
Fantastic. What about within an occupation, could I search for multiple occupations, and how does that look?
Yeah, totally. So with any of our reports, occupation overview, occupation table, you can search for as many occupations as you want. So with the occupation table, we did start with all available because we wanted to narrow that down. But if you just click limit by occupation, you can actually do two options here. So the first one is you can go in and just start typing what you want. So we want nursing assistant, maybe we want nursing, psychiatric aides, and we can add in as many of those as you want. The other option is maybe your institution is working with a specific set of groups of occupations that you need to look at. You can go up here to this group section, and you can select any of the saved groups that you have. Not only can those be shared with your organization, but it can be shared, it can be ones that you created as well. There's always some ones that we've already created. With the new 2020 switchover, we're going to see some of these incompatible groups just because that means there's an occupation in there that's not there anymore or that's new. But any of your groups you've saved, you can also click those, select that, and that will pull in all of the different occupations underneath that group for you, and then allow you to just go and run that, and that will pull up only those occupations that you were looking for in this group. And you can do that with any of the reports. That group option, if you're already inside a report, you click Advanced, and it will allow you to go to Groups. Up here in the top bar, you can go and actually browse all of your different types of groups you might have to be able to see that information. But within each of the reports, as you go in to set up your default setup here, you can go in and access those groups from here, or just type it in if you want to. You can also browse them, but typically I would say people know what they're looking for, or they have a group set up, and so that's how you would access those.
That prompted another really excellent question, and I'm going to add to that question. This is a test. Hopefully you don't fail. Can you show us and talk a little bit about how you can edit or change the SIP to SOC crosswalk that Emsi has created? And then the question is, would the SIP to SOC map from program to job skills? So both of those are great questions.
Awesome. Yeah. So the first way is we're just going to start with the really basic part is up in groups. We have a section called Program to Occupation Mappings. This is your program to occupation mapping that's standard right now. You can edit this. So for some reason, this is not closing. It's not collapsing, but this will pull up all of your programs that are mapped to these different occupations. You can always click edit here if you want to go in and edit some of these and remove those. Just be aware that will change that for everywhere in the software that you're working, just for you, not for your org. You can go and share your mapping with people. You can go in and check out other people in your org and see their mapping. So these are all the people that are in Emsi Burning Glass's org. So I could go check out Erin's if I wanted to and see what mapping she's done. But you can edit any of your program to occupation mapping from here. And this is the best place to do it at because you're going to see all of them. If you want to, you can go and export it as well. You can do your editing there and then send that back to us, and our engineers can upload it into your actual mapping for you. But I really trust our default mapping, and I would say that there might be some places that you need to change, but we've based it off of the NCES mapping, and then we've made a lot of changes based off of real world experiences through our consulting team to adjust this to say these are the occupations we typically see people go into from the research that we've done and the experiences we've had with our clients. So this is a great mapping place to start. But throughout the tool, you'll see this SIP to SOC mapping in different places. The biggest place you'll see it, I'm going to go back to the home page, but the biggest place you'll see it is under programs. And we briefly talked about this before, but it's in the program overview. And like I said, you'll see it throughout the report where we say, you know, these are the occupational programs in the occupation overview that align with this. So that's part of our mapping. But where it's really clear is if we go into program overview, I'm going to do, see what comes up if I put in cybersecurity here, if I can type in front of everyone. So I'm going to just pull in this cyber and electronic operations and warfare and see what that pulls in. So once again, we're looking at a SIP code here. I'm going to clear this and do the whole state of Idaho and then click run. So this will pull in any programs that have any completions. And once again, I picked one that doesn't have it. But then you go down here and this is where we'll see that mapping. So this is our SIP to SOC. These are showing our target occupations. Most places where you see a target occupation or occupational program language, that's where we're showing our mapping. So you can see how that program maps to occupation or how that occupation maps to a program. And from here, you can also edit it. So we give you the list of occupations we're looking at. And if you're like, oh, well, this would actually map to other occupations, you can go up here, click edit, and edit this. Just be aware once again that once you start editing this, this will change this for the entire tool that is in your profile. So you can restore those default occupations whenever you want to, but this is a really helpful way for you to be able to nail down for your region how it might be a little bit different than, say, what you're seeing in Idaho or what you're seeing in other states.
And can you at least scroll down to the bottom and show how you can see those job skills that are related back to this program?
Yep. So one thing to note is this mapping up here is the skills that we're pulling and the job postings we're pulling all go into this occupation. So these aren't being tied to programs per se. These are being tied to the occupations that map to that program. So if we were to adjust this and add another occupation, not only would these numbers change, but the job postings numbers would change, as well as the companies that are posting job titles and then the skills that align with this. So these are skills that are aligning to those occupations.
Can you do something really funny and throw in like hairdresser as a mapping?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Leave cybersecurity and add hairdresser as an edit, which is really wonky, I know. Obviously, those mappings wouldn't map, but I would love to show how that looks.
I'm gonna have to remember to change this because it's gonna be really funny one day.
Yes.
So I will update that, give you those new numbers, but then we can go down and take a look at these skills here and see how that aligns as well. So cosmetology and ammunitions, I think those are pretty good.
I think they work.
They work
so we
great.
only have a couple more minutes left, and I wanted to kind of close the training today with kind of the different ways that you work with clients and how they use this data. Like, is it program alignment? What are the major ways which this is helping our colleges solve problems?
Yeah, so I would say the number one is definitely that program alignment, program review, Perkins 5 reporting. But when it comes to program alignment and review, it's looking at what their competitive analysis is, what employers need for those skills, and how can they make sure that their programs are aligned correctly. That's the top one. I would say the next piece is I work with a lot of grants folks. So that includes Perkins 5 reporting, that includes any other grants they might be doing to help get funding for whether it's projects on campus or classes or whether they're building new buildings and facilities. We also work with folks that are trying to build out good relationships with employers. We know that that comes directly hand in hand with programs, but I work with schools that are doing advisory boards and that are doing boards in their local region to help say, these are the occupations we need, these are the skills we need, and they're going directly to a group of companies in their region. And this can help you decide, what company should I go to? It's hard to go and assess your full region and say, okay, I've talked to these 5 employers, this is what we need. But with job postings, you can go get a full view of the region and see, maybe those employers you never thought about talking to, you can help find that there. We also have worked with people in HR to help do compensation remodeling. But I would say the big ones are those program review, business partnerships, as well as grants. Those are the top 3 that I think people are working with, and building that workforce relationship goes with that second one. Erin, would you add more that you work with?
No, I think that that's great. Sometimes we do have career counselors working. This is a great tool to see what skills should be listed, what employers are posting. So career counselors should never be forgotten, especially because job postings is so robust and so valuable. So I definitely would add in career counselors.
Yeah, and I always forget about career counselors and analysts because typically I work with them in career coach, but many times this is a way for them to do more robust research to go along with the information that they're giving to students, so that they can help translate that for students, but also what should they be putting on their resumes. That great comparison between what are employers posting and what are people putting on their resumes is a great way to say, these may be the spaces that are missing in your resume to help give employers a full picture of your skills. So yeah, that's a good one to add, Erin.
Yeah, we probably, for our next training, should show some of those free skills resume optimizers that we have for people. So.
That is true. That is true. Well, awesome. I don't have anything more to add if there's no other questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Erin, I will pass it off to you.
Thanks everyone for joining, and we are just out of time. If you have a question, just know you can always go to your account manager. Once again, it's under the support tab. Account managers love to answer questions. We love to help you become a data expert. So reach out to us anytime. And once again, this is going to be recorded and saved in our knowledge base, so you can send that out to anyone at your institution who you think could use this.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. It was so good to train today, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.